Hi everyone, this is Dr. Chhoda, and in this video, some new information has come to light that definitively proves that we are in the middle of a K-shaped recovery. The rich are getting richer, big companies are getting even bigger than ever before, while the poor are getting crushed. I'll give you some interesting trends across all states across the country, as well as across different occupations across the country, so you know exactly where the economic recovery stands. Now, as you know, Apple, Best Buy, Nike, more recently Target, and also Home Depot have been making so much money. They've reported some of their best earning periods in the past several years, even though we're in the middle of this pandemic. In fact, I saw a news article today about Apple that surprised me. Apple is now, and you'll see this chart on your screen actually, Apple is the first US company to reach $2 trillion in value. That is a staggering amount of money, and their value increased during the pandemic, believe it or not. So it took Apple 42 years. Look at this chart on your screen. It took Apple 42 years to reach $1 trillion. And in the past 21 weeks, more specifically in the last 2 years, their value has gone up from 1 trillion to 2 trillion. A majority of that increase in value from 1 trillion to 2 trillion has actually happened in the past 21 weeks. While the global economy shrank faster than ever, Apple's value continued to increase substantially. In fact, Apple just became the first US company to hit a $2 trillion valuation when their shares reached that critical threshold of $467.78 at the time I'm recording this video. So, this is a big milestone for Apple. And again, big companies are getting bigger and bigger. And as recently as the middle of March this year, Apple's value was under $1 trillion after the stock market plunged because of fears of the pandemic. And now we have all of these big companies, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Facebook, that now make up a majority of the S&P 500. That's where we stand right now. Now, let's take a look at the state of the economy, and I want to give full credit to the New York Times for this phenomenal piece of reporting, and I will provide you with a link to this article in the description section below so you can check it out. Now, this chart that you see on your screen is basically a reshaping of commerce in the United States, and I believe some of these changes are actually going to be permanent. Some businesses will continue to thrive, whereas others will go out of business completely. And I believe this is a precursor of things to come across the entire world. So before I get into the chart, I just want to tell you that on the top of the chart from left to right, that is the time period. So that is, going back to the start of the year all the way through where we are now. And the line that you see in the middle represents essentially the baseline economic activity where we were before the start of the pandemic. So again, when we go from left to right, you're seeing the time period, what's happened from the start of the year. And we have a threshold here of March 19th, as you can see on the chart. That's when California issued the first stay-at-home order. And so again, from left to right, you have the time period. And then again, that baseline right in the middle represents baseline economic activity before the pandemic hit. So as you can imagine, if anything goes below that line, that means that things are much worse after the pandemic. And as we get closer to that line, it means that recovery for that particular state and for that particular occupation, for that particular industry is taking place. Again, this is a phenomenal chart, and you can check it out on the New York Times website. I'll provide you with a link to this in the description section below. But let's take a look at this and analyze exactly where things are happening. So, as you know, the effects of the pandemic started in the first quarter of the year, right after March. And what basically started happening is, and this blue bar that you see is the national average. And so again, what you're seeing is a nationwide trend. Remember, the trends are specific to specific states. As the pandemic came back, then, the activity became a little bit more sluggish. Now you'll see New York highlighted on your screen, and you can see that New York is essentially at the bottom of the curve because New York did take the biggest brunt, if you will, of this entire pandemic. And all of those lines represent different states. Let's take a look at Mississippi. In Mississippi, visits to businesses dropped by only 25% in March from a year earlier, even as the national decline was nearly 48%. And so some states were impacted not as badly as others. Now let's take a look at Massachusetts. It had a severe early outbreak, being a neighbor to New York, and trips to commercial locations in March fell by more than 50% from a year before, and the state has moved cautiously to reopen. Bars remain closed by law, and business visits are down over 31%. You can see a significant impact between Massachusetts and Mississippi. And remember, what you saw earlier was the national average. All those lines in between represent all the other states in the country. Let's take a look at Oregon, which kind of falls in between Mississippi and Massachusetts. The state avoided a major outbreak in the early spring, but after it began reopening in mid-May, it had a steep increase in the number of cases. So you can see the impact in that particular state. Now even within the state of Oregon, people have not returned to all the businesses that they frequent, because now you can see all those lines. You can see people have not gone back to bars, and the grocery shopping and home improvement and convenience stores are on the rise now. But again, this shows the impact within Oregon for different industries, as you can see. Home improvement in particular, that's why Home Depot made so much money and reported a massive increase in their earnings, because people are spending a lot of money on home improvement while they're stuck indoors. Bars have been suffering because they emerged as hotspots for transmission. Bars have been among the hardest hit, and it doesn't look like bars are going to recover anytime soon, to be completely honest. I mean, I don't know of many people who are going to bars at this point in time. Airports and travel are suffering. People aren't really taking public transport that much. Train stations, too much of an impact. Here's the interesting thing: hospitals, urgent care, all of these businesses, industries, if you will, are suffering. Grocery, which saw a big spike, if you look at the left side of the chart, grocery, which saw a big spike when this whole pandemic broke out, is now sort of starting to level off. Home improvement, gas stations, all of these essential services, if you will. And I wouldn't really call home improvement essential, but a lot of people are doing home improvement. So gas stations and a lot of services that we absolutely need are now starting to stabilize back to where they were. People are now starting to frequent big box stores, although that's had a bit of an up and down trend. Pharmacies, people are now gradually starting to go back to pharmacies, mainly drive-thrus. And that's basically what's going on across different industries. So as you can see, depending on the industry, some industries have not recovered at all, and some industries have recovered substantially and are actually doing better than ever before, back to their pre-pandemic levels. South Dakota is one of the states that did very well. In fact, they turned down the $400 a week booster. Mississippi is right at the top. Mississippi seems to be doing well. And so you have these two states right at the top. And when I go down, you have Alabama, Iowa, Arkansas. All of these states, by the way, are back to, in general, economic activity better than pre-pandemic levels. Going down, we have Tennessee. And as I go down the list, you have South Carolina, which is right at the midpoint, right at the baseline, if you will. And then these states, Indiana, Kentucky, Montana, Idaho, are below the baseline. And that bold line that I showed you at the start of this video is the national baseline. That's where things stand right now. And some states, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts, California, New York, are below the national baseline in terms of economic activity. So those are the national trends, and that's how different states compare with the national trends. Many states, as you can see, a majority of states are right now below the national trend, which, by the way, is what pulls that national trend line down below the baseline that you saw at the start of the video. And so the national trend actually does not tell you the full picture, because the picture is different for different states and different for different industries within different states, with New York being the state that has suffered the most economic damage at this point in time. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I think this is this is a historic dichotomy between some companies making more and more money and some states suffering, and the national baseline, the national average being far from where it was at the start of the pandemic. We are gradually starting to make our way back, but it is going to be a long road ahead, and it's clear right now that this is a K-shaped recovery. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. If you did learn something new from this video, please consider clicking the like button. That would mean a lot to me. I would really appreciate that. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications so you get instant updates from us going forward. If you want to get alerts from us on your cell phone, get your cell phone out, send a text message with the word ignition or with the word time to 70,000, that's 70000, and you'll get alerts from us on your cell phone. You can also get added to our email list, and you can opt out at any time. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda. If you know nothing about me, I've had the fortune, the privilege of living the American dream, the honor of living the American dream, and you can learn more about me on our channel, on the homepage of the channel. I want to help you live your American dream. We release videos at 2 p.m. East Coast time most days of the week. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, please click like, please click subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video at Ignition Time. Thanks. Take care. Bye.